We often grow up with the belief that being nice is an essential quality, a virtue that society values highly. We're taught to prioritize the needs and feelings of others, to be generous with our time and resources, and to avoid conflict by all means. However, what we rarely discuss is how being overly nice can actually be detrimental, not only to our mental and emotional health, but to our relationships and overall well-being. In a world that can be harsh and unforgiving, niceness can sometimes be mistaken for weakness or an invitation to be taken advantage of. This misguided perception can lead to situations where our kindness is exploited, our boundaries are disrespected, and our own needs are consistently overlooked. The harsh reality is that being overly nice can sometimes do more harm than good, making us vulnerable to manipulation and mistreatment. Could it be that in striving to be liked and accepted by everyone, we are putting our well-being and perhaps even our lives at risk? In today's video, we'll explore this idea in depth by revealing 8 significant negative consequences that arise from being overly nice. Moreover, we'll discuss 4 powerful strategies that you can implement to safeguard yourself from falling into the trap of constant people-pleasing. By understanding the downsides of excessive niceness and learning how to establish healthy boundaries, you can protect yourself from burnout and preserve your energy for what truly matters. So without further delay, let's dive into the first point and uncover the hidden costs of being too nice. 1. You set yourself up for disappointment when you are overly nice and constantly put others' needs before your own. You might think you're doing the right thing, being a good friend, partner, or colleague. The Stoics teach us to accept reality as it is, recognizing that our happiness should not be dependent on others' actions or reactions. However, this is easier said than done. When you give and give, without expecting anything in return, you might feel that you're cultivating emotional resilience. But deep down, it's natural to hope for some form of reciprocity. The problem arises when that reciprocity doesn't come. Despite your best efforts to manage your expectations, the human tendency to seek fairness can lead to feelings of disillusionment when others don't reciprocate your kindness. Over time, this can cause a buildup of negative emotions, disappointment, anger, sadness that erodes your well-being and diminishes your trust in others. But here's the thing, it's not necessarily the fault of the people around you. They're not letting you down on purpose, they're simply absorbed in their own lives, their own struggles, and their own priorities. This isn't to say that people shouldn't be considerate, but it's a reminder that you shouldn't expect others to think or act like you do. By continually putting others first, you inadvertently set yourself up for disappointment, as the world won't always meet your expectations. The key takeaway here is to prioritize your own needs and well-being. By doing so, you create a foundation of self-respect and inner strength that prevents the emotional toll of unmet expectations from affecting you so deeply. 2. You attract takers, not givers. When you make it a habit to give endlessly without setting boundaries, you might believe you're fostering positive relationships. However, the reality is often the opposite. The Stoic philosophy teaches us that true value lies in acting with wisdom and virtue, rather than merely fulfilling others' desires or seeking their approval. Unfortunately, when you consistently give without expecting anything in return, you may find yourself surrounded by people who are more than happy to take advantage of your generosity. These individuals, often referred to as takers, can be quick to exploit your kindness, seeing you as a convenient resource rather than a valued person with your own needs and boundaries. Over time, this dynamic can create one-sided relationships where you're constantly giving and others are constantly taking. This not only drains your energy, but also reinforces a pattern of behavior where your needs are always secondary. The people in your life start to assume that you'll always be there to help, to listen, to sacrifice your time and energy, because that's what you've trained them to expect. This can lead to a cycle of dependency where your self-worth becomes tied to how much you can do for others, rather than how much you value and care for yourself. It's important to recognize that if you don't set limits for yourself, others certainly won't set them for you. People often act in their own self-interest, and if they can get more from you without giving anything in return, they will. It's not about being cynical, it's about being realistic and protecting your well-being. By setting clear boundaries and learning to say no when necessary, you ensure that your kindness is appreciated rather than exploited. In doing so, you also attract people who respect your boundaries and are willing to give back, creating healthier, more balanced relationships. 3. Your goals will be overlooked. One of the fundamental teachings of Stoicism is the importance of living by reason and virtue, which includes setting boundaries and prioritizing your own responsibilities. When you're overly nice, constantly putting others' needs ahead of your own, you might believe you're being selfless and kind. But in reality, you could be running away from something within yourself, something that scares you, hurts you, or makes you uncomfortable. Perhaps it's easier to focus on others because it allows you to avoid confronting your own fears, doubts, or insecurities. However, when you consistently prioritize others' goals and well-being over your own, you risk neglecting your own dreams, ambitions, and health. Over time, this can lead to a diminished sense of self, where you lose sight of who you are and what you truly want out of life. Your goals become secondary, or worse, completely overlooked, as you become more concerned with pleasing others than with fulfilling your own potential. This imbalance can have serious consequences for your mental and emotional health. When you don't take the time to nurture your own dreams and ambitions, you may begin to feel unfulfilled, resentful, or even depressed. It's crucial to remember that self-care is not selfish. It's necessary for maintaining balance and ensuring that you're in a position to support others in a meaningful way. If you're constantly giving to others without taking care of yourself, you'll eventually burn out, leaving you with nothing to give to anyone, including yourself. By setting boundaries and prioritizing your own goals, you create a foundation of self-respect and inner strength that allows you to contribute to others' lives without sacrificing your own. 4. People will perceive you as weak. Stoicism teaches us the importance of strength, control, and self-discipline. These qualities are essential for setting boundaries and protecting our own well-being. When you're overly nice and constantly helping others without setting limits, you might believe you're being generous and compassionate. However, the unfortunate reality is that others may begin to perceive you as weak, someone who can be easily manipulated or taken advantage of. This perception can lead to a lack of respect from those around you, as they see you as someone who is too accommodating, too eager to please, and too willing to sacrifice your own needs for the sake of others. Paradoxically, the more you give without boundaries, the less respect you may receive from others. People may start to see you as a pushover, someone who can be relied upon to do anything for anyone, no matter the cost to yourself. This can lead to a cycle of exploitation where your kindness is taken for granted and your own needs are consistently overlooked. The good news is that this cycle can be broken by learning to say no and setting clear boundaries. When you start asserting your own needs and priorities, you'll find that others begin to respect you more. They'll see that you value yourself and your time, and they'll be less likely to take advantage of your generosity. It's important to recognize that respect is a two-way street. If you don't respect yourself enough to set boundaries, others won't respect you either. By being clear about your limits and learning to say no, when necessary, you not only protect yourself from being exploited, but also gain a new level of respect from those around you. Don't be surprised if some people who only approached you when they needed something start to disappear when you begin setting boundaries. This is a sign that your newfound self-respect is working, and you're attracting people who value you for who you are, not just for what you can do for them. 5. You'll attract the wrong kind of people. When you're overly nice and constantly giving without setting boundaries, you may find that you attract a certain type of person into your life, those who are more interested in what you can do for them than in who you are as a person. These energy vampires are individuals who thrive on taking from others without giving anything in return. They feed off your kindness and generosity, leaving you drained, depleted, and with nothing left for yourself. Over time, these relationships can become toxic, as you find yourself constantly giving while receiving little to no support in return. The Stoics teach us the importance of maintaining our energy and emotional well-being, and part of this involves being mindful of the people we allow into our lives. When you're constantly giving, you lower your emotional vibration, making yourself more susceptible to attracting negative or needy individuals. These people are drawn to your kindness because they see you as an easy target, someone who will always be there to help, no matter the cost to yourself. Unfortunately, this can lead to a cycle of unhealthy relationships where you're constantly giving and receiving nothing in return. It's important to recognize that not everyone deserves your time and attention. Just because someone is in need doesn't mean it's your responsibility to help them, especially if doing so comes at the expense of your own well-being. By setting clear boundaries and being selective about who you allow into your life, you protect yourself from being drained by those who don't have your best interests at heart. Instead, focus on attracting people who value you for who you are and who are willing to contribute to your life in meaningful ways. By doing so, you create a network of supportive relationships that nourish you rather than deplete you. 6. You risk developing unhealthy habits. The Stoics emphasize the importance of self-discipline and moderation in all aspects of life. When you're constantly giving to others at the expense of your own well-being, you may find yourself seeking comfort in unhealthy habits as a way to cope with the stress and exhaustion. Whether it's overeating, drinking, or other forms of addiction, these habits can become a crutch that you rely on to get through the day. While they may provide temporary relief, they ultimately do more harm than good, leading to a cycle of self-destruction that can be difficult to break. Self-care is essential for maintaining your mental, emotional, and physical health. It's not just about taking time for yourself, it's about recognizing when you're overextended and making the necessary adjustments to restore balance. By setting boundaries and prioritizing your own well-being, you create a foundation of self-respect and inner strength that allows you to avoid falling into destructive patterns. Remember, you can't pour from an empty cup. Taking care of yourself is not a luxury, it's a necessity. 7. People will question your motives. In a world where true kindness is often rare, excessively nice behavior can sometimes raise suspicions. People might start to wonder why you're being so generous, so accommodating, and so willing to go out of your way for others. Are you genuinely that selfless, or is there something else going on? Unfortunately, this skepticism is rooted in the reality that many who appear overly generous are often masking ulterior motives. Whether it's a desire for approval, a need to feel important, or an attempt to manipulate others, excessively nice behavior can sometimes be viewed with suspicion. This perception can lead to a lack of trust and a sense of distance between you and those around you. Rather than seeing your kindness as a virtue, people might begin to question your sincerity, wondering if there's something you're not telling them. This can be especially damaging if you're someone who genuinely wants to help others without expecting anything in return. The last thing you want is for people to doubt your intentions and distance themselves from you as a result. It's crucial to focus on your values and principles rather than worrying about how others perceive your kindness. The Stoics teach us to do good for its own sake, regardless of how others react. If you're genuinely acting from a place of compassion and empathy, then continue to do so, but be mindful of how your actions might be perceived. If you find that your kindness is being met with skepticism, it may be worth reflecting on whether you're overextending yourself and whether you need to set clearer boundaries. By doing so, you can ensure that your generosity is appreciated rather than misunderstood. 8. Your kindness could be manipulated. While it's important to be kind and generous, there's a fine line between being helpful and being taken advantage of. The Stoics teach us to do good regardless of others' opinions, but they also emphasize the importance of wisdom and discernment. When you're excessively nice, others might start to believe that you have hidden agendas, leading them to manipulate your kindness for their own benefit. Rather than appreciating your generosity, they might begin to see you as a tool to be used, someone who can be easily manipulated to serve their own interests. This can lead to a situation where your kindness is not only unappreciated but also exploited. People might start to take advantage of your willingness to help, expecting you to always be available to them, even when it's inconvenient or detrimental to you. Over time, this can lead to feelings of resentment, frustration, and burnout as you realize that your kindness is being manipulated rather than valued. It's important to recognize the signs of manipulation and take steps to protect yourself. By setting clear boundaries and being mindful of who you extend your kindness to, you can prevent others from taking advantage of you and ensure that your generosity is appreciated for what it is, a genuine act of goodwill. By implementing these strategies, you can break free from the cycle of being overly nice and create a healthier, more balanced life. Remember, self-care isn't selfish, it's essential for maintaining your well-being and ensuring that you have the energy to be there for others when it truly matters. By setting boundaries and prioritizing your own needs, you can protect yourself from burnout and create a life that is both fulfilling and sustainable. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it with others who might benefit. Your support helps us continue to create valuable content.